The first game on Saturday features Purdue and McNeese State. McNeese State being the first upset of the tournament, really, other than Creighton, the 9 seed, taking down Louisville, but the first bigger upset, 12 seed over 5th seeded Clemson. Took them down pretty handily. Obviously, the score ended up closer than what the game really was at halftime. It was 31-13. McNeese had a lot of success turning Clemson over. Clemson was kind of sleepwalking, not making open shots. Ended up making it tight at the end, but just wasn't enough. Certainly wasn't an upset I was really expecting based on how Clemson been playing. McNeese, of course, getting the news that Will Wade was leaving for NC State literally yesterday. So, props to them for kind of rallying despite that news. And then Purdue, who, they played a fairly tight game with High Point. Like, it was kind of sitting around 6-8 for a bit. Sometimes High Point would get a little bit closer. But ultimately, Purdue ended up pulling away there, winning that game by, 12? So coming to this game, right now, Purdue sitting at -5.5 here over McNeese State.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup, honestly. I mean, it's a way different matchup for Purdue than what they just got against High Point. I mean, High Point played that deep drop coverage with Bodo, but you're not going to really get any pick and roll opportunity against McNeese State. They do what they call the triple switch. So it basically takes away the pick and roll handler action and roll man action. So I think that duo of Smith and Coffin Wren are going to get taken away, at least in that area. So McNeese is going to force these other guys of Purdue to beat them, and Fletcher Lawyer, Cam Heide, Colvin, CJ Cox. And it's kind of just a matter of, do you believe in those guys to hit catch and shoot threes? And they've kind of shown all year that they can knock these shots down. And I believe they're in the 96th percentile in spot up points per shot. So, but they don't really like playing out of the spot up because obviously they want to play through the Smith and Coffin Wren pick and roll as much as they can. So yeah, they're 15th in the 50th percentile in spot up chances. And I mean, they're also in the 100th percentile in catch and shoot points per shot. So, and McNeese filters those open catch and shoots. So it is tough. I think McNeese can turn them over despite Purdue's turnover numbers in a vacuum being pretty good. They're 58th nationally in turnover rate in the offensive end. McNeese 18th nationally, turnover rate defense. A lot of that was played in the Southland, but this team does have athletes and they apply enough ball pressure, I think, to be able to bother Braden Smith. And like, this team doesn't have a real second ball handler that I trust. I think I trust CJ Cox more as a second handler over Fletcher Lawyer. So it is a weird matchup, especially for McNeese's defense. And then on the offensive end, I think McNeese can make enough shots in this game. I mean, they're 99th in the country in three-point percentage. They don't love to shoot the three, but there are some paths. I mean, through the offensive glass as well. I mean, Purdue's not really a great rebounding team, which is a bit weird to say. They've always been great on the glass under Matt Painter. They don't really have that this year with their smaller front court. So there are paths for McNeese to score it. And if you don't believe in these Purdue like secondary action players, like, I think you should probably take McNeese to win this game. But I would ultimately, I'm kind of on the fence about this, especially like from a spread perspective. I'll say Purdue squeaks one out, but I could easily see McNeese winning this game.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about this matchup too, and we talked about it in McNeese's first game, right, is that this isn't your traditional mid-major because they have a bunch of guys that have transferred down. A bunch of guys that have played power conference basketball, high major basketball. So it's not your typical type of athletes that you would typically see at a mid-major school. So their ability to get on the offensive glass is very real against these power conference teams, and their ability to turn teams over is very real. against power conference teams. So those two stats are certainly viable here. I'm just concerned with the others for Purdue knocking down open shots. We've seen it where they're able to really get going. In those open catch and shoot opportunities, we saw it early in the year. Even what was it when they were at home against Alabama, right? And the others were just knocking down open shots left and right. They were trying to take away Braden Smith a little bit. And McNeese is 352nd in the country in 3-point rate defense. So, and Purdue sits at 38.3% shooting from three, which is 11th in the country, right? So if you're going to just continue to give up open threes to this team, now granted, right, they played a Clemson team who also very efficient from behind the arc and started 0 of 10. I would consider McNeese to have had some pretty fortunate luck today that Clemson wasn't making, because they were getting some pretty good looks. I don't know as if they're going to have that same luck here against Purdue. I would say Purdue wins this one, but I'm with you. I think it's a much closer game than people might think. But ultimately, I think Purdue does squeak this one out.
Yeah, I mean, if Purdue comes out of the gates shooting like Clemson did, I mean, they're definitely going to lose this game. I mean, I guess I kind of overestimated what Clemson's like secondary players were. Like Chauncey Wiggins just couldn't buy a three. He was getting open corner threes and just couldn't buy one early in the game. And I think they really missed Dylan Hunter today, especially from a ball handling perspective. It would have pushed Jaden Zachary off the ball a little bit more, would have allowed him to play a little bit more and catch and shoot, and even Chase Hunter open up his game a little bit more. So, yeah, overall, I think Purdue is probably a little bit better set up on the offensive end. So I'll say they squeak it out. And yeah, like I said, if they're missing shots like Clemson was, it's McNeese is definitely live to go to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, definitely. But for our sake, I think we're gonna side with Purdue here to pick up a narrow victory and move on to the Sweet 16.